few little surprises I found which I didn't know I had. This is a left-hand fender wing. This was top of the wing, filled with silicone and filler. And I took the paint off, so I put a new piece of steel in there, inside and out, nice and strong. I thought this was a dent, it was full of filler, but it's actually, I guess, where we had a wing mirror. And this is what I'm up to now. I'm on the front left wing, which looked pretty good before I took all the filler off. And there was 10mm of filler on that. And all these holes, I guess, put in to stop the filler falling out, and it certainly did its job. Because that filler's been in there for, I don't know, 20 years, 25, 30 years. And it was undetectable. So I've run a drill through all those holes just to make them slightly bigger and clean them up. And I've started welding up these here. And then when we come down to the bottom, this panel here was just, well, not worth saving. So made a new panel, put a new wire in it. But of course this has all turned to jelly here. So I shall put this box back in, which will give me some sort of location for this opening, and put the bracket in for the lower, what do we call it, for the battery box. And somebody's asking about these, put some light on it. My bracket there, that's welded on. Somebody said theirs was bolted. And then here's my battery box, which I don't actually need to bother with this because I'm just putting one battery under the other side, which I've repaired that box. And this is not as bad as it seems. I mean, the top's gone and the bottom's gone. The rest of it is not bad. I think the other one was worse. The front's okay and this side panel's okay. So I may or may not get round to doing that, but at least it's got this this brace here, which will give me a distance for the wing from the chassis. So another good locator. Somebody was asking about these vent boxes as well. I think there's a 120 though, which I guess there might be different, but here's my vent box, and that just drops in and screws on. There's one screw in it, another screw to go in over here, but I'm going to bolt it in from the outside first and then put the last screw in. I can get a few clamps in that are quite useful, but I've still got a gap there, so I'm going to take it off and put a hole or two, an extra hole or two there, and screw it to that piece of wood from the back. And I've got so many holes, a couple more really won't make any difference. That's a better shape now. And I use one of the existing holes and one fresh hole, and that's taken that bow out of the panel. And then this bar here, this straight edge, equally spaced off the door, so you have a small gap that end, touching in the middle, small gap that end, and then at the end of it, the end of the wing, we should have about an inch, and that's about it, about maybe a little bit less than an inch. That's looking quite good. And I've made up, and I've made this And this is the dimension of the brace that goes under the battery box, so I can just keep trying that in, and that sort of fits as well. So that looks to be about there, so I'll see if that panel will go in now. Well, that's sort of there now. Although not quite, because the going to focus. Anyway, the wires overlap down there, so I've got to trim those and try and weld those up, so that'll be interesting. There you can see the screws I've put in. At some point I've got to bite the bullet and start chopping some metal out. So I'll get those wires to meet, and then clamp it up again. After many trial fits, that's not too bad now. I've got this piece of timber going the length of the car to see that I've got that bottom line straight, and get those clips in up that edge. That edge is too tight to get some clips in. Bit more gap than I would like there, and that flange is a bit wrong on the end. I might have to cut that off and weld a new flange on, but hey. And the wire is maybe 3 mils short on the inside, so I think I'm going to try and gas weld that wire back together. MIGging it, you always end up with gobs on it, don't you? And it'd be very difficult to get in there and grind that flat. So I would go that. I've spaced this piece off with a, that's maybe, I don't know, 6 mil. Probably needs a bit more than that, but everything seems to be quite happy at that point. Time to weld. Well, I've took it out again, because having that, I've got a gap here at the end of this wire about 3 or 4 mil, which would have been a bit of a bugger to try and fill it up. So I had a thought that I can actually nick a bit of wire by pulling it through, and that black mark was there, and I've got it in the vise and I pulled it out of there, so that should help me a lot. Well, that's worked better than I expected. I decided to MIG it. So I've got the two ends of the wires to actually touch, and I know if I gassed it that they'd have started to move around a bit. So MIG, loads of heat, quick blast, and that's joined that nice, but it's not clamped anywhere else, because I couldn't get the wires to meet when it's all clamped up. So let's see if it clamps now. In, tacked up, ready to weld. I knew I'd got a gap there, that's where I cut a bit too much on an early stage. Those little magnets, these here, these rare earth magnets, brilliant for putting little bits in like that. A big clunky thing. So I'll start welding that now. That's gone in okay. I'll clean that edge up when I get the door off. Slight hollow there, but it fitted everywhere else, so I left it at that. I might be able to just tap that out a bit more, but with MIG it just tends to crack, doesn't it? So I'll take this brace off and see what shape it looks. That's worked out okay. I've got a bit of oil canning going on here. In that position it's a bit too much, and that's a bit too much the other way, so I'm just going to sink that a little bit, I think, somehow. but that's not bad, and it stayed straight across the bottom, so job done.